So I am Councillor Claire Mosdale. I am the Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, Public Health, Housing Needs, and I'm also the Isle of Wight Council Mental Health Champion. You probably stood here and wondering, why the hell is this woman being a councillor? Lots of people ask why you give your time. My dad was a local councillor. He died 11 years ago of stage 4 lung cancer. He was dead within 6 weeks. And I was determined one day, if I had enough money to give the time to be a councillor, then that's what I do, and I have won his ward back. So the ward of Barrington and Newchurch was my dad's, and 11 years later it became mine. Lots of hard work behind it. I'm a Conservative county councillor. I'm not a very good politician, I don't think, because I'm not very political. But my role within the council to me is really, really important. I wear lots of hats, so I'm stood here not just as the Cabinet Member and the Mental Health Champion. I am also Director of an electrical contracting company, not a big electrical contracting company. We just seem to do lots of work and keep ourselves small, and I think that's quite good for our mental health as well. But one of the other reasons I'm stood here is I grew up in the building industry. There's lots of people that you may know, like Dempsey's and stuff like that. They all started working for my granddad years ago. And we did quite a few big jobs. I built the walls around the prison, we did the Bembridge runway. I grew up in that environment. Literally, our house was in the middle of the building site, literally. One of the reasons that I really, really want to speak to you about how important your mental health is when I was 19 years old, my father had come out of the Navy and he had gone to work for what was considered a very successful plant hire and haulage business. My granddad had started off as a self-made man. My dad came out of the Navy, had all the things that you needed to do. He'd become a qualified civil engineer, very well educated, and there were quite extremes from my granddad, who had built this business up, and my father, who had always worked within the Navy, wanted to come and make changes within the business. Within 2 years of working for Mosdale's, without any of us in our family realising, my father had had a very, very severe nervous breakdown. Nobody really understood then what was happening to him. We just thought, well, he's lost weight, he's been a bit grumpy. But literally, he had got, before we noticed, that we couldn't actually, by the time he asked for help, we couldn't even let him drive a car on his own. He had suicidal tendencies. He had become very, very poorly. We tried to get help from doctors, etc. But what helped my dad was his friends within business on the island. Those friends that realised that something was going on with my dad, and they had meetings with him. They had like a little support network. So it was people like Colin Boswell from the Garlic Farm, Chris Bland, who was the Lord Lieutenant at the time. They all got together and said, this can happen to any of us. Literally, it can happen to any of us. And the best way of resolving it is to talk to people, so we can get you help with the doctors, etc. But we need to make you understand that there is no shame in feeling like you feel, and you will get well. You just need some help to get well. So I have, since the age of 19, I think after I was a bit gobby to my dad, Danny knows that I've always grown up being a little bit gobby, and having a plate of spaghetti bolognese flying across the room because I'd said one word out of place, realising that, you do actually have to make sure that you recognise that in other people. So I am the Isle of Wight Council's mental health champion. I believe in good mental health. One of the things that we brought into the council is to actually have your colleagues speak and understand what is going on in your everyday life. You'd be amazed within a large organisation how many people will walk past their colleague and they don't know anything about their personal life. They don't know if they're married, they don't know how their children, they literally don't know anything. I'm one of the few councillors that if you ask me all about the women in Dem service or the gentlemen in Dem services, what's going on with their lives, I could tell you. We recently had someone who left our democratic service, our business services, and I'm still in contact with him because I was one of the people that recognised there was something going on in his personal life that was affecting his mental health. How many of you within this room, within the construction industry, still feel that we are a little bit blokey? It's that environment, isn't it? I'm a woman, I can say I'm a little bit blokey because most blokes know that I am a little bit blokey. But it is that thing. Within your own organisations, do you know about the people's mental health and well-being of your colleagues and your employees? Because it is very, very important that you do so. If you send someone out to work and they have had too much to drink the night before because they are having a very bad time at home, it is for you as employers to have some level of understanding that nobody goes home and drinks 12 pints just because they feel like it. There is something going on in their world that will get them to that point. Last week I opened our homeless shelter. So it's the winter shelter. I've worked really hard to get the funding for that. In place in that night shelter, I have made sure that we have our new mental health services, Isropia. I've made sure that we have our inclusion, which is our drugs and alcohol service, working out of that homeless shelter. The reason I've done that is because nobody chooses to get to that point in life where you have nowhere to go, that you have lost your home and everything because everything has escalated. You could go on a building site today and meet somebody who has got something going on in their personal life that will actually lead them to that point where they become homeless, where they need mental health services. I think we all have a duty of care. I have a duty of care within the council to make sure that I push, that we make sure that our colleagues know what they are doing, what's going on with their lives, etc. We also have a thing within the council which is looking after your own well-being, and Brian will be laughing, which is Sugar Smart. I've never seen any meetings, apart from the public health meetings, where they bring biscuits. You tell me that what the logic in that is. But that whole ethos of the council is to try and look after our staff's mental health and their physical health as well. So where do we go from here? I think within the council we've still got further to go. We do staff surveys, we ask what's going on within the council, do you know your colleague? All that is becoming part of those staff surveys so we can have an understanding of what's going on with the local authority. Within my own electrical business, I need to have an understanding of what's going on with the people that work for us. We all have a duty of care, not just as employers but as human beings. So I could rabbit on for ages. I'm checking the time because I have a little bit to get carried away. So for me, I'll go back to our homeless shelter. Everybody is 3 checks. Everybody's employed is about 3 paychecks from being in a position where they can lose their home and ending up those services at the council. And that could be because of their poor mental health and because of any problems with drugs and alcohol and anything from losing their job and anything. Everything can escalate. And I just think that we need to make sure that we look after ourselves and look after the people that work for us. Has anybody got any questions? No? You're all really silent.
Where is the homeless shelter?
So the homeless shelter is at Barton Primary. The reason we've done it at Barton Primary is because it's our building. I've been a little bit cheeky. I think I was on BBC and I think they probably cut most of the stuff. When I go onto the media, I try and talk really, really quickly. I talk quickly anyway, so they can't edit me too much. The reason I wanted this to go into Barton Primary was I've got a foot in the door. We've paid $40,000 to have it refurbed, ready there as an assessment centre as well. So I've got it open for the winter, which means because we spent this $40,000, it would be really difficult to say, okay, we're going to close it in March and not go further with it. It's a really important thing for the island. You know, any of us at some point could need those services.
Claire, do you think that the council might have a role in leading by example, by setting example, by promoting good practice in the construction industry?
We have a role because part of my portfolio as well is I'm the Cabinet Member for Public Health. So within the public health role, then yes, definitely across the whole island we have a duty to make sure. Brian, you've been off before, haven't you, to Chamber of Commerce meetings and stuff like that, to teach what good health and wellbeing is. We as a council haven't properly, I'm going back to all the public health budgets, we really haven't as a council invested properly on a good wellbeing service. You know, we haven't invested properly in childhood obesity, we haven't invested properly in smoking within pregnant women. Those things are going to change in the near foreseeable future.
I was just thinking, Claire, of the opportunities that exist and the example that can be set, not just by what you do, but by what you don't do. And if we go back to the scaffolding situation just over a year ago, and the dreadful state that got into through what we as a council weren't doing. And now you look at the situation now and how much the scaffolding standards have improved, and how it's elevated the industry for all the operators in scaffolding through something that very simple that we did do as a council. And I wondered whether you thought there might be greater scope to influence the construction industry from the council at all levels.
I think for me, we can get detracted into utility companies taking up roads and St Mary's roundabout, don't even mention that. I think we can get really wrapped up in that bit of what the council does. For me, it's the other stuff that the council does, which is the public health. It is what we do with adult social care. It is all that other side of the council that people don't see. Most people, when they pay their council tax, on my ward council work, you know, don't take this the wrong way, but I deal with a lot of double lines and double yellow lines and dog poo. You know, it's a really big part of what you do as a ward councillor. But when you see what the wider scope of the council is and how we can help, you know, I do think within public health there is far more work that we can do, encouraging people to actually look after the health and well-being of the people that they work for them. You know, the biggest thing that we have within the council now, which I think is really important, is that we talk to each other, we talk to our colleagues. You know, you understand what is going on with people. How many people in this room employ people within the construction industry and lose members of staff to being off sick? How much does that cost your business for people being off sick, and what can be long-term sick? You know, if someone signed off with depression, you are not talking that they are signed off for 2 weeks. You are talking that could be 6 months for someone to be signed off. If you within your businesses are able to understand that before that person is signed off, and you can do something to support them financially, you know, and it is a tough world that we live in at the moment financially. You know, my granddad used to say to me, never be a busy fool. You know, turnover is vanity and profit is sanity. You know, we all run around being really, really busy. But if you look at those small things like how many of your staff are going off sick? How long are they going off sick for? Is there something within your company, within the construction industry, that you can do, you know, help with that? You don't want to send someone, I mentioned scaffolding, you don't want to send someone off the top of a cherry pick or up scaffolding, actually, if they are got to the point that they really don't want to be here anymore. And it can really quickly happen. With my public health role, very recently we deal with all the what happens with suicides and stuff like that. We have a very high level of suicides on the island within men. So
can I ask you, what about the facilities after the company recognises there's a problem with somebody? They've got to recognise and say, go there to get help. Now that is not there.
So we give our mental health services really bad press on the island. They have been rubbish, you know, you can't dress it up, they have been rubbish. But there has been, it's not great yet, but we're going in the right direction. So we've done something called the Mental Health Blueprint, which is the NHS Trust, it's the CCG and ourselves as a local authority who have issued this blueprint. We have just had, our community mental services have been absolutely dire. We have just recently opened what's called the Cirque Haven, which is part of CCG and the Trust. We've all worked together to do that. We've also had commissioned something called Stropia. I don't know why they've called it Estropia, you have to Google what it means, and it's really difficult to remember to say it half the time. But they are based out of Riverside, and we're looking to give them some buildings in Ryde as well. They are walk-in mental health services, and what they will do is they will do a 6-week programme with someone to actually teach them, basically, this is what's happened to you, this is how you can move forward. My problem with the mental health services on the island, and this sounds a bit weird, is social media. That because our mental health services have been so dire and so failing, now that they are starting to improve, you will see someone say on social media, oh, I don't feel very well, I don't know where to go with mental health services, and then you'll see this whole raft of comments that will say, they're rubbish, don't bother, We talk people down to not even wanting to go to the next step. We've talked ourselves to a situation that people feel that there's nothing there. Well, there is. You know, it's a huge step that we're taking at the moment.
Sorry to interrupt you, but the first point of call for anyone that's got a mental problem is their doctor. has no experience in mental health. It's not her fault. She's doing what she does. That's the start point for somebody. Then, if it's recognised, they do get to see the doctor and can see that something wrong. He can rely to somebody. That will keep the numbers down to a certain degree, because otherwise it's just all too much, you know.
Okay, so I am on what's called the local care board. So the local care board is basically, it's 3 members of the local authority, senior members of leaders of the local authority, 3 members, so Maggie Oldham, who's the chief executive of the trust, and Vaughan, who's the chair, the finance director, and then 3 senior members of the CCG. What we are looking to do, and you'll see the government's brought some money out for social prescribing, is that when you make that phone call to your doctors, we all have this feeling within inside us that we need to go and speak to our GP, etc., about if we had mental health issues. What we need to do is make sure that that's triaged within the doctors. If you feel really poorly, you do not want to wait 2 weeks to appointment. What you need to do is go and talk to someone. You need to go and talk to someone that day. So within the doctors already, we have care navigators and we work. They are looking to get social prescribers, which I believe is going to be, I can't say too much because it's all part of procurement, but it will be that re-educating GPs that you don't have to wait 2 weeks. If someone phones up and said, I feel low, I can't, all those issues that you would have that are symptoms of having poor mental health, so not sleeping, feeling that you're drinking a bit too much, it's that whole sort of black dog feeling, isn't it? That needs to be triaged at the GPs. Because that needs to go to a social prescriber, somebody that you can go and talk to that day, and they can point you in the right direction of the help that you need. You shouldn't have to wait 2 weeks. Problems with GPs is a national problem. You know, we need to encourage more GPs. I can't change the world. If I was Prime Minister, but I'd be Boris Johnson. Don't even record that, I'm not mentioning that. We need to invest more within, not so much more within the NHS, but more within GPs, etc. But also those staff that wrap around the GPs. You don't need to go and see a GP if you want to discuss your mental health. You need to see someone within that practice who can point you in the right direction and give you that helping hand. That's what you need. So it is happening, but it's going to take a while.
Claire, at the time of annual remembrance for our service personnel who lost their lives, a lot of people in the construction industry employ service personnel who may or may not be suffering from PTSD. And it seems to me that we're sorely neglectful of people that might suffer in that way, and I wondered what you might think about that.
So if you have someone who has been in the services and works for you, we have on the island the Veterans Outreach Service. They work out of Portsmouth, but they also work out the Riverside Centre. They're here once a month. They bring trained psychologists with them. If you have somebody and you can point them in that direction, I'm quite happy to send you the link of when the Veterans Outreach are open. Get one of them to go along because they are ex-service people. They have that level of understanding of what's happened to them, and they can also put in place an appointment with a psychologist without having to go to the GP. All of that is based in the Riverside Centre once a month.
Also, Royal Maritime Club over in Portsmouth, opposite Mary Rose, they work out.
They work out of Portsmouth as well. They are absolutely excellent. So the stuff is there. For me, our biggest problem, around that time, is signposting. So for me as a councillor, one of the things that even my partner doesn't even want me to stand for re-election next year. He reckons 18 months, isn't it? He reckons we earn about 40p an hour when you put your 80-hour week in reading papers at 3 o'clock in the morning, whatever. But if I do stand for election next time, by the time we come to the next election, what I want to have done is made sure that not just the services are in place, but the signposting, so that people know where they can go and what is on offer. Because you've got me stood here in front of you talking about Veterans Outreach, the homeless shelter, all of that is available on the island, but we just don't signpost people properly to it.
Just a quick question. Do you know what the difference in the average suicide rates are over here comparatively to the mainland for young Wales?
Brian will be looking at me because Brian works public health. So the data we are working on at the moment is about 2 years out of date. for me, at the moment, our data is saying that we've got a high percentage of men over 45 who commit suicide. I have a 25-year-old daughter who has, well, she's run with the wrong crowd for years. I think she's got a bit of my personality. It's either that direction or that direction, my daughter. But she knows, she will bring to me and say, Mum, there's another one of my friends who've committed suicide. I could probably name 5 people that my daughter knows between that age group of 20 to 25 who are males who have committed suicide in this island in the last 2 years. So it's me that says, look, you know, we keep sitting there at meetings and saying you have a high percentage of males, but actually on the island, a lot of our problem at the moment is social media, drug related, and that causes bad mental health. So that is data that I keep pushing for to say, look, this is the data that we need to focus on. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist, you know, who's involved, you know, who knows people my daughter's age to see what's going on in this island. It is really, really sad. And anybody who says we don't have a drug problem on the island lives in a bubble, as far as I'm concerned.